Wasatch Report, shooting straight on everything from prepping to politics.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the Wasatch Report. I'm Suzanne Sherman, and this is the Cerberus Radio Network, where here we defend liberty and freedom from the flames of tyranny. Want to remind you, you can follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/CRN. That is our fan page, Cerberus Radio Network. I was just talking to Jeff before the show about how people can follow us and make it really easy to access all of our links after he's done getting all the levels settled here. I'll have him weigh in on that one. We have a YouTube page. We have a live chat going on right now. So if you have the time to listen live, please join the chat, make yourself heard, be a part of our program until we can get phone calls going again. We are working on that. If you can't listen live, you can always hear it later on YouTube. You can also download any of our shows on SoundCloud. We've recently uploaded the latest edition of Fundamentals of Federalism, where I discussed my article published by the 10th Amendment Center on the AR-15s. Now, as we know, as a result of well, you know what? Do we really need an excuse? But these shootings, we had the Parkland, Florida shooting. We had the tragedy in New Zealand now, and now they're renewing talks again on banning the AR-15s over in this United States of America with 2 Ks. And we have to understand this is unacceptable. I'm going to lay out, or I do lay out in this article, both written and the audio version, the reasons why this is unacceptable. The anti-gun machine keeps moving forward. Also, you can check out a new show we have here, Prepper Chicks After Dark. My good friend, apocalyptic author Annie Burdell has a show that she does, and now that's going to be available for you here on our network. She's a gal whose Facebook page really got me started in learning how to be prepared. So you can find her on Facebook, also on the Prepper Chicks. She also has one called Prepper Chicks Blue because she talks about politics again. So I love my friends in the preparedness community also talking politics. It's very disconcerting when you get on these big prepping pages and they just have a blanket rule. No talking politics. That's fine. You can go wherever you want. We like to combine them because this way we can bring in new people from each of the areas. So people that might not be interested or really educated on preparedness, but they want to hear our talk about history, hopefully we can encourage them. Because guess what? When the political realms fail to do their job, and we talked about that yesterday, we talked about a great article. So if you missed Waking Up Cerberus yesterday's show, that was March 25th, listen to our discussion. Greg Junkbond Carpenter was with me and Jeff about what's going to happen if political solutions fail. There's a related article that we're going to get into today about what nations are going to succeed and what's going to happen in the next 25 years. I found it to be a fascinating article. Venezuela has another blackout. We'll be getting into that. Today is a special day. If you own a bump stock, congratulations, you're a criminal. You can thank President Trump and the NRA for this one, ladies and gentlemen. People don't like to hear these kind of truth bombs. You know what? That's kind of why I get booted off these terrestrial talk radio shows. Jeff, are you ready to jump in on the show with me?
Yep, we're ready to talk about how you can find the links.
Let's do that.
The people that are here already know because they found a link. But it really is very simple. If you have someone that can't figure out where to look, it's pinned to the top of our page. The very first post you come to, because I'm on Facebook right now. I'm looking at it on my screen as I'm talking to you. And when you get to the banner, you scroll down, and the very first thing you see is a post that says Cerberus Radio Network, and it has a little thumbtack in the corner, and it says Listen Now, and it has, let's see, what's there? It has the standard and the mobile, which is the low data usage. So it's right there. You can't miss it. So you can get to Radio Co. very simply. And after you scroll down from that, the very first 3 posts you find in the main body of the post are today's links. I posted YouTube and Radio Code both streams again. So it really is that simple to listen to the shows. So if you're listening to us on SoundCloud in is it memory? Is it live or is it Memorex? If you're listening to us on Memorex, well, you can find us very simply live. It's almost impossible not to find a link.
And the younger listeners are scratching their heads saying, what is he talking about? Is it live or is it Memorex? Yes, I'm old enough to remember those as well. It really makes it easy for you also if you follow or subscribe to SoundCloud or YouTube, respectively. And that way you'll get notifications when we post new stuff. And please share these links if you like our show. Please be evangelical. We've told you, we share this stuff publicly on Facebook, Twitter. They try to, what do they do? They lower rankings. I think that's the term they use, Jeff. So our friends don't see it. I had about 2,200 friends on Facebook. And one of the few activities I'm permitted on during my hard time in the Facebook correctional facility is I can pare down this supposed friends list. So people that I never hear from, there are a lot of friends or people out there that try to just gather up as many as they can. I've scaled that back, but you can follow me on the Suzanne Sherman's Wasatch Report. That will be my public page. So when I get back, I'm going to encourage people to go there, as well as our CRN fan page and the Cerberus Radio Network page as well. I have a website, SuzanneCSherman.com. That really makes it easy to access all our shows. You just click on the social media bars. We have a YouTube and a SoundCloud option for you there. You can also catch up on all of the blogs that I've written. I have blogs on preparedness and politics on both. And then if you go to Suzanne's articles, my articles from the 10th Amendment Center, Abbeville Institute, American Conservative, you can find those all there. And Junk Bond is working on a website for the network as well. So we want to make this as easy and seamless as possible, because the cool thing is, once we have a website, we could put information for you there that doesn't go away. These things, they're either hidden from Facebook news feeds or they just go away. So after a while, so for instance, when I write a blog, I just did one on the benefits of canning your own food. That doesn't disappear in the news feed. So now you can just go to that webpage. And I'm really excited to move forward with our own radio network website. We've been talking about that a lot. Should we start with our weather, Jeff? We're having a little bit of a meltdown here. And for once, it's not me. It's the snow in my front yard. So that's encouraging. I opened my door last night from the back to let my cats in, and I hear this scrambling through the snow, and it was a doe and 2 of last year's fawns. And lo and behold, I actually saw them eating some grass in the back field. That has melted away. I've had feet of snow out there. So that was really encouraging to see. The songbirds are coming back. And so I'm starting to come out of these winter doldrums. How about you?
Yeah, we are actually supposed to have some fairly nice weather this week. We're supposed to get into around 60 later in the week. And so, of course, when the weather gets close to 60, what does the Johnson household do? We go to the range. So that's what we're doing on Thursday.
Are you bringing your bump stock?
No, it mysteriously was lost in that unfortunate boating accident.
I'm really regretting never having bought one. I'll tell you.
Yes.
As we were saying before the show, I really wish I'd bought one, because today,
yes,
cleaning it, I would be talking to it, I would not be turning it in, I would not be rendering it inoperable. Folks, this is a BS law. Jeff, I was careful, no demerits for me. This is blatantly unconstitutional. Remember, candidate Trump, I respect the Second Amendment. We need to respect the laws or enforce the laws we already have. Well, now President Trump, it's good to be king. I'm going to make a few more.
Yeah, well, what did he say about due process?
Oh, first we'll take the guns, then we'll worry about due process. Even Obama wasn't this stupid. So anyway, that being said, I will still support him. I will still vote for him in the next election. And I will tell you why. Because he is a speed bump on this Marxist road. Look at the candidates on the left. And I know some people have said, well, either you shouldn't vote at all or you are just part of the problem. That being said, if we look at the meltdown after the conclusion of this Mueller investigation, you realize how evil these people are to realize they have consumed 2 years of our lives by focusing on a hoax investigation. We've got to buy some more time to get people educated on the benefits of decentralization. Our topics on this show today, I'm so delighted how they're all going to tie together. We're not going to just talk about the Trump investigation with Mueller all day long. If you want to hear that all day long, go to SiriusXM, go to Fox, go to CNN, go to MSNBC, whatever. That's what they're going to be talking about. That's what they're going to be talking about.
Yeah, they're going to be wasting your time with that political theater. Because that's all it is. We discussed this yesterday. All they're doing is distracting you from what they're doing. And we talked just before the show. I'm going to kind of segue into that real quick. This tweet from Thomas Massey, Representative Massey,
yes,
that I shared with you. Here it is. With Americans struggling to pay energy bills, the House voted tonight to subsidize energy for Europeans so Europe can be more independent of Russia. Cost to U.S. taxpayers, $416 million for 2020 to 2024. And then he has the links for the bills so you can actually find it. So if you go to Thomas Massey. So here we are. They're stealing more money from you. And while everyone's not seeing this because they're all caught up in Mueller, they're stealing more and more from us.
So Europe can be more independent of Russia. What a load of crap. By the way, I'd like my energy bills lowered, please. Our government cares only about its own power, its own influence around the world. Stop pretending the Constitution matters. It doesn't. It is doing exactly what it was intended. Getting back to the Constitution, folks, gets you this: Declaration of Independence, secession, consent of the governed. These are the things we need to focus on. I love Thomas Massey. He's good with our buddy Dwayne Stovall, who's also running for the United States Senate in 2020. He's going to try and defeat Cornyn in Texas. So we wish him well, and we'll keep following Thomas Massey. He has these little tweets. He calls them Sassy with Massey. Wouldn't I love to get him on the show? We'll see if we can do something like that. Alas, we're small potatoes. Speaking of potatoes, let's get to the meat and taters of this show here. I've got a little bit, as you know, I like to start with some of the local issues. This is something from the Salt Lake Spittoon. It's about Utah lawmakers. So if you think DC lawmakers are stupid, no, ours are just as bad over here. Let's see. Our money is their money. They have absolutely no problem stealing it from us and then trashing it. That's exactly what they do. But here's something that's interesting. Robert Girk, he's a writer for the Salt Lake. Okay, I'll be respectful. Tribune. He talks about, let's see. A lot was made of how absurd it was. Oh, here's the thing. Taxpayers, we're going to have an Orrin Hatch Center. He calls it the Center for Ego and Democracy. I love it. Apparently, this is going to be funded by private contributions. Oh, no. Now we're going to be stuck with $1.5 million to contribute to the Orrin Hatch Ego Monument. And that was enough. There was enough consternation, even among Republicans, he says, in the legislature, that eventually they took the money away from the center, akin to the presidential library for the retired senator, to spend. Do you think they're going to give it back to the taxpayers? No. They're going to spend it elsewhere. What does that mean? $500,000 for pony rides and cow milking at Thanksgiving Point. Thanksgiving Point's a cool little area. It's out by American Fork, Lehigh, south of Salt Lake City, maybe a half hour, 40 minutes or so. And at Thanksgiving, they have all these cool little activities there. I guess it's active the rest of the year. I don't know. I've only been there once. But again, $500,000 for pony rides and cow milking. I have an idea, Jeff. Now, this is kind of radical. I know I'm kind of an extremist, which is why I don't last long on, I'm too truthful for terrestrial. How about if you want your kid to ride a pony, You pay the person that owns the pony all by yourself. Is that just an amazing concept?
Yes, it is. You know what? I just want to add something here about local governments, because what are we in the middle of? We're in the middle of us having to file to pay the money that they're going to steal from us, because this is all theft. They're extorting money from us. It's nothing more than or less than that. So here we go. My mom pays her taxes, and she ends up owing $14 to the state of Pennsylvania. Guess what that was, Suzanne?
What?
Can you even guess? No, I'm sure you can. She owed $7 because she didn't pay in enough on the gas well royalties from the well nearby us that we get money on. She paid in, but she didn't pay it in like they wanted it. She didn't send in a check in each quarter. She sent them a check for the whole amount that she needed to pay them in December. So $7 of that, they charged her $1 for each dollar she owed in penalty because she didn't send it in quarter. She sent them the whole thing in December. $7.
That's verging on criminal behavior. You need to.
I mean, she $7 freaking dollars, and they charged her $7 in penalty.
It costs them more for their bean counting goon to come up with this and send it out. Oh my goodness. But here's the other thing. Okay, $300,000 to help Vans, the company that makes your kids' shoes, build the planet's second Olympic caliber skate park. Utah State Fair Park. Okay, that's something that people that go to can certainly contribute to. But here's the doozy. Oh, Freedom Festival. Community gathering in Provo that culminates with a giant concert and fireworks show. They have these things when you go to festivals. It's called an admission gate. When you go through said admission gate, you hand them a ticket. How do you get this ticket? You pay for it. Pay for your ticket.
Suzanne, you said Freedom Gate or something, or Freedom Festival or something?
Freedom Festival.
Is that like a festival out there, like music and stuff? And I'm not familiar with it.
It sounds like a concert to me. See, typically where they play music and you go to a place like this, that's a concert and you pay tickets. Freedom isn't free, they say. It will cost $100,000.
Wow. Hey, did you see that in August we're having Woodstock 50?
Yay.
At Watkins Glen Raceway, where your son races or goes to the race.
That's right. When the race is going to be, I might be out there for that.
Yeah. If you have $800, you can go for the 3 days and camp there and see all 3 days of shows.
I'll go to the race instead. Here's the doozy, because this just shows how idiotic our politicians are here in Utah. And I'm not trying to be unfair. They're just stupid everywhere. I think, we have to discuss this article too about sociopaths and how they are attracted to politics. We're not going to do that today, but that's in the queue, ladies and gentlemen. $200,000 a year for Warriors over Wasatch. That's at the Hill Air Force Base. Warriors over Wasatch. The legislator has decided to just make it easy, give $200,000 a year to the air show for as long as that lasts. Oh, Suzanne, you stop criticizing the military. Why do you hate America? Here's a doozy. $2 million to lobby Washington, D.C. to remove wolves from the endangered species list. You can find the whole thing in this article in the Salt Lake Tribune here, but this is what really gets my goat. $2 million to remove wolves from the endangered species list so we can hunt wolves here in Utah. The funny thing is, the official narrative is there are no wolves in Utah. Utah DNR says so. I took my son with, I did the hunter safety program with him out here in Salt Lake City. The official narrative, wolves are extinct in Utah. Hunters killed them all. Well, would you please explain why you're spending $2 million of our money to take them off the list? Because there's simply no reason to if they aren't here, correct? Okay, so let's get beyond the fact that our local government is lying through their shiny big teeth. See what I did there, Jeff? And now let's look at the Endangered Species Act itself and why Utah, like Wyoming, remember now, Wyoming wanted to have some grizzly bear hunts. A federal judge said, no, you can't do that. Wyoming said, pound sand, we're going to do it anyway. That, ladies and gentlemen, is federalism. The Supreme Court, they're not the ones to be checking federal power. We know they're not going to do it. Don't look to the black robe messiahs. Utah can say, hey, feds, screw you. Screw your Endangered Species Act, Feces Act. We're going to hunt these wolves because they are a threat to our livestock community. They are a threat to the people out here. And we are okay with putting them on the same area as coyotes. Some people think wolves shouldn't be shot. That's fine. That's up to you. But legislatures in Utah, the people in Utah should not be paying to bribe the crooks in DC to have the right to shoot them. Well, you know what, Jeff? I could be wrong on all of this. While you're back there, can you please look through Article 1, Section 8? And if you find wolves, if you find wildlife, if you find endangered wildlife, migratory birds, if you find that in Article 1, Section 8, I will apologize and we will edit that out of the show, or we can leave it in so people can see how dumb I am.
So I'm looking for the Endangered Feces Act.
No, feces is not endangered in Hawaii.
Oh, okay. Wrong act.
So I think y'all get my point here. This is all Utah has to do is ignore it. We do not need permission to the feds to decide what is vermin, what we want here in this sovereign state. Utah is a boot-licking, butt-kissing community for the feds here. You see very few people trying to argue for our sovereignty and our independence because this community thinks the Constitution is on a par with the 10 Commandments. That's our... Yeah.
Just as an example, folks, we discussed this the other day, and I'll go down in our news feed on Cerberus, and I'll repost it so it's right up on top. The other day, I read part of Missouri's new nullification law on federal firearms laws.
Oh my God!
How a state responds to the federal government, I'll post it back up again.
Yes, please. So again, that's a little bit of federalism. Utah does not need to be throwing our money away at these criminals so that we can do something that was never delegated to the general government in the first place. Holy cow, it's 23 minutes after and I'm still at the local stuff. Let's move on to bump stocks. Today is a special day. As I said, we talked about a local citizen here had to stay on his bump stock until the courts could sort it out. Well, we know how they're going to rule on that one. So here we go now. Federal bump stock ban takes effect today. How did we get here? This is an article from USA Today. And let's see, the Las Vegas shooting, where a madman used a bump stock during his shooting spree to kill dozens, injured hundreds. Nationwide push, pardon my French, to get rid of these things. Trump declared that he would ban them without congressional action and directed the Justice Department to figure out how. Here's how I got my walking papers from my little K-Talk gig on Tuesday. And this was about Trump using his National Emergency Powers Act, and when Rand Paul was one of those who voted to overturn that national emergency resolution. I said, for those of you that are screaming and saying that Rand Paul should join the Democrats, here's your chance now. Even Obama didn't do something so outrageous. The Obama administration recognized that these mechanisms had nothing to do with machine guns. Trump used his phone and a pen and the goons at the ATF to put in this unconstitutional ban. The department's quick and dirty solution was to reclassify the bump stocks as machine guns under an existing law, the National Firearms Act of 1934. How unconstitutional is the National Firearms Act? It is all the unconstitutional there is. They couldn't possibly be any more unconstitutional, but it is lawful. That's the difference between what is lawful and what is constitutional. How did this rule change? Well, machine guns have been defined as any weapon which shoots, is designed to shoot, or can be readily restored to shoot automatically. That means more than one round per trigger pull. Gun rights activists have argued that the rules comment period that bump stocks don't turn semi-auto rifles into machine guns, and they do not. So I'm not going to even go through all this nonsense, because here's the thing. If you're going to ban bump stocks, Jeff, I think there needs to be a nationwide amputation. You can probably just set them up at maybe, your store when you get your flu shots, like at Walmart or something, or have festivals, maybe when you get your free freaking pony ride out at Thanksgiving Point, and cut off your trigger finger and your thumb, because everybody has a built-in bump stock. But these idiots in Washington, D.C. just can't help themselves. Any more commentary from you on that one, Jeff?
No, it's again, if people out there want to figure out what's going on, read Article 1, Section 8. The power to regulate farms was never delegated to them. Read the preamble to the Constitution or Bill of Rights. The preamble makes it clear that the Bill of Rights are further declaratory and restrictive clauses. So it's a restriction on the general government and the general government alone. And then look at all these federal firearms laws and see how they fit into this Constitution that's obviously a dead letter that no one cares about. And now we have to figure out how we're going to get away from these megalomaniacs in Washington, D.C., because that's all that's left to us.
We've been talking a lot about Venezuela. Booger will be joining us later on this week. And I want to thank our, again, Prepper Chicks for bringing this article to my attention. Apparently, there's another blackout striking the Venezuela capital. By the way, Jeff, did you see that Trump is talking about bringing, and we'll get Junk Bond and Booger to join us on this conversation when we have it. Trump wants to bring Venezuela into NATO. Can you please tell me what part of North or Atlantic Venezuela fits into? We're going to get into that later on, but I saw that and I thought, oh, doesn't this fit in nicely now with Maduro and the, I think Guaido, and now we've got Bolton, or what is it, John Bolton, that psychopath. He's got his sights set on Venezuela, so as does, I think, Pompeo. So this is interesting, but now we have another power outage spreading across Venezuela Monday, knocking offline much of their communications, stirring fears of repeat chaos from 2 weeks ago during the nation's largest ever blackout. The sad thing for the people there is they cannot learn from that other blackout and prepare, because there are no supplies to get. They can't prepare. This is why we are so adamant about trying to get people to understand once you need to be prepared and you start then, it's too late. The article continues, like the previous outage, officials blamed opponents with the support of the U.S. carried out a sabotage of the Guri Dam, the source of the bulk of their electricity. Now, Booger knows people that are on the ground there, and they said that a piece of equipment malfunctioned. Be that as it may, whatever happened, expect more chaos from Venezuela. And if you want to know the source of that chaos, you can look to our own United States government. I referred you to the episode on Venezuela that we did with two people that are very familiar with what happened, because they were there when the United States and Israel, by the way, were involved in Venezuela. So check out that episode of The Spy Who Loves Liberty with Junk Bond and Booger. How can you not want to listen to a show with two guys with those names? Anything else you want to talk about with that, Jeff?
No, again, we've said it before, I'll say it again this morning. For those of you that don't believe that the U.S. government was involved, all you need to do is follow the money, because that is exactly what this was all about. It was about natural resources, and it's about just follow the money.
Yep. I want to thank my friend Susan for also sharing the show. I also want to take a minute just to thank and acknowledge those that are new to our fan pages, those that are new to listening. I appreciate all the comments. Our numbers are going up. So obviously, people are taking our requests to share because they like what we're saying. And it might not always be pleasant, but we try and make it informative and entertaining. So again, I think we're on the right track, Jeff. Obviously, we're not going to be the big players out there, but we will be known for being the speakers of truth. Hey, check these guys out. You're not going to hear this elsewhere. And, we try and mix it up and always make it entertaining for people that are listening. So yesterday we were wrapping up our show with this query: what happens if politics can't fix what's broken? Well, I think we've discussed that time and time again. I think we can really come to the conclusion that just politics alone is not going to fix anything. This was from a website called of2minds.com. I love to find these esoteric stories, and this is so relevant because this really fits right in to what we're discussing. This was published March 8th of this year. And it's nice to hear this stuff, Jeff, because I know we're not the only ones saying this. So this was written by Charles Hugh Smith, and he had a companion article to this also that was linked. The first article was linked to this one I'm going to get into now. Which nations will crumble and which few will prosper in the next 25 years? And this article has to do with centralization. Oh, that sounds like something we've been talking about here. See, we're not just this crazy little band of 5 lunatics that think centralization is the answer, here, or decentralization is the answer. This was published March 21st. So this is also a brand new article, same website, of2minds.com. Charles Hugh Smith. Might have to reach out to this guy. Which nations will crumble? Which few will prosper in the next 25 years? We're seeing what's going on with centralization right now with Brexit. I think the deadline has come and gone for them to secede from the European Union. England, watch the movie Brexit. If you are still a supporter of centralization, watch that movie and you will see how evil it is. So the first query he posits for the readers is: what will separate the many nations that will crumble in the next 25 years and those few that will survive and even prosper while the status quo dissolves around them? The factors that will matter are not necessarily cultural or financial. Being hardworking and wealthy won't be enough to save nations from coming apart at the seams. And what he says here from the get-go is adaptability and flexibility will be the core survival traits going forward. And let me submit to you, I don't think that is just for governments. That is on an individual level. That's how I try to live my life as well. Be adaptable, be flexible. It's really frustrating, for instance, when I hear people always complaining about like their kids' schools. Oh, the school is, well, homeschool. Oh, I could never do that. You're a stay-at-home mom. Why can't you homeschool? I'm going to digress if I keep getting into that, but think about it. That's somebody that's not adaptable. That's somebody that's not flexible. They're going to complain, but that's the limit to their capabilities. We're going to have to be more improvise, adapt, and overcome, right, Jeff? So none of the current political systems are decentralized enough and adaptable enough to survive what he refers to as a non-linear era that we are entering. This is the politics of centralized compromise, incremental top-down adjustments. He says these are wholly inadequate to dealing with what he says are non-linear disruptions. So linear changes are those that are gradual over time, incremental, like progressivism. Non-linear change is rapid, unpredictable, and systematic. The problem, as we know, he says, is I love this. You're going to love this, Jeff. The parasitic elites rule the centralized hierarchies of wealth and political power, and they will cling to power even as the nation they rule crumbles around them. Obama. Where Congress fails to act, I will. They should have had him arrested on the spot. What'd they do? They stood up and cheered and clapped at their own demise. The hubris, complacency, and greed of the ruling parasitic elites is near infinite. The idea that the political and financial structures that they dominate will not survive simply doesn't exist in the parasitic elites, with the exception of a few outliers who are constructing remote bug out compounds with landing strips, etc. The people that don't buy into this notion seem to be people like me that are preppers. You have to be prepared for what is going to happen with this government because it continues to have all solutions come from a top-down organization that doesn't care about you, folks. It doesn't care. By the time, and this is what I just mentioned with regards to Venezuela, by the time the populace awakens to the precariousness of the entire status quo, it will be too late to effect meaningful change via removing the parasitic elites from power. Just as Rome was too hollowed out to survive, by the end, the status quo structures will be too enfeebled. Remember, I have a pen in the phone. Congress, yay, will be too enfeebled to adapt quickly enough to survive. Centralization of wealth, power, and control has been the solution for hundreds and even thousands of years. We're approaching peak centralization and the systematic failure of centralization as a solution to anything. I refer you to the quote I use frequently. Michigan Representative John Dingell, Democrat, during the debates of the Affordable Care Act. When they say a Democrat or any politician misspoke, that means they swerved into the truth and had cataclysmic results. Unfortunately, the ACA still passing. Oh, by the way, John Roberts, thank you. This is why I stopped looking to the judicial temple monkeys. So anyway, where was I going with this? Yes, John Dingell said we need the Health Care Act to control the people. He actually said that. That should have triggered enough of a backlash to stop that debacle of legislation in its tracks. As we know, it did not. And now we are dealing with the march forward of more and more socialized medicine. Meanwhile, Trump says America will never be a socialized nation, and everybody cheers. We already are. Let's see. Let's go back to this article. They also say that the only sustainable, this is going to sound familiar to what we say here, the only sustainable solution going forward is radical decentralization of capital, political power, and the control of resources. The parasitic elites, I love that he keeps using that, by the way. The parasitic elites, I'm going to say it again, parasitic elites rule solely because wealth and power are so highly concentrated in the hands of the few. As the financial and political systems unravel and fail, solutions that are completely outside these centralized hierarchies will arise if the populace is free to embrace them. Let me expound upon this paragraph for a moment here. Wealth and power are highly concentrated in the hands of the few. He talks about the financial and political systems. Now, when Jeff and Daniel launched this network, they used the phrase 18th century ideas for 21st century thinkers. 18th century genius John Taylor of Caroline prognosticated. He had the warning for us: beware of the unholy alliance between government and finance. That's where we are today. We have an unholy alliance between government and the pharmaceutical companies. The states refuse to, overall, we see, I hope to see more of this nullification like you talked about with Missouri, with Wyoming. It's very disconcerting to see Utah trying to bribe public officials in D.C. to not do what they weren't supposed to do in the first place. Again, unholy alliance, top-down power isn't working. And when they talk about people having to be resilient and embrace new ideas, that's what I mentioned a minute ago. Homeschool, get your kids out of these indoctrination centers. How many people complain about what their kids are going through in their schools? We have a friend in Wyoming, and another friend of mine was talking to her. She was complaining about the schools, and he laughed and he goes, "You drive the bus. Here's a woman that actually gets the kids to the schools and back, complaining about what the schools are teaching, and she's taking them in the school bus." This is how inflexible we are. This woman needs to adapt to the situation. Well, if you don't think the schools are doing us any good, stop getting the kids there. The article continues, the only sustainable solution going forward, as I said, radical decentralization. Oh, yes. What else do people need to do? Start growing your own food. Start being prepared. Wouldn't it be nice if the power went out and guess what? You had the foresight to install solar on your house, not the government sponsored solar where they have the government, monopoly on these solar panel companies and their chosen little cronies, but your own, where you're not on the grid. This is what we saw in Florida after, I think it was Hurricane Matthew, when the power started to be restored, or before it was restored, actually, people had solar power. Well, we'll just flick on our solar. Guess what? It didn't work because the grid was still down. That's not adaptability, folks. Solutions will be obsolete, and existing centralized financial and political structures, reforms will all fail. The parasitic elites will never relinquish their control of power. The solution will be the total collapse of the centralized and financial and political structures that the parasitic elites control. Adaptability, flexibility will be the core survival traits going forward. Do you think, if you are a prepper, it is smart to ignore politics? I submit to you, it is not. Doesn't mean you have to get on social media and argue with people about them, but you need to be cognizant of what's coming. Survivalists, they know what's around them. They pay attention to the cues, to the weather, to wildlife. What is a wildlife doing? If a deer's up and alert and looking at something, what's she looking at? Is it a mountain lion? If so, I better figure it out. Be aware. The wolves and the mountain lions that we have in the woods, we've got them in DC. They're out to get you. Adaptability, flexibility, core survival traits going forward. The only structures adaptable and flexible enough to respond quickly and effectively enough to survive are decentralized networks, non-hierarchical, distributed rather than centralized, self-organizing rather than top-down. Oh, that's impossible. That'll never happen. Switzerland. I try to tell people, look at Switzerland. This is an example of a bottom-up decentralized government. And then I hear, well, nobody cares about Switzerland. My point exactly. Jeff, what's the last war Switzerland was involved in?
I don't know. I don't think I remember them being involved in any.
Is Switzerland
I think of.
Is Switzerland bombing anybody into oblivion under the claims of national interest, national security, spreading democracy? Does anybody hate Switzerland for their freedom? If that's the thing, if the radicalized Muslims hate Switzerland or hate us for our freedom, why the hell aren't they attacking Switzerland?
I don't know. Switzerland's been there for hundreds of years, and everyone just leaves them alone, and they leave everyone else alone. I mean, isn't that kind of what Jefferson and Washington were saying in their addresses to their farewell addresses and all their State of the Unions and stuff? They were saying, let's have peace and prosperity with everyone. We've been away from that.
Oh yeah, that's crazy talk. And we had a statesman who tried to pursue that path for us, and he was laughed out of politics. Dr. Ron Paul.
Somewhere I have that speech where they booed him.
They booed him.
He was opposing all these other wars.
Yes. Yes. Do you think when he passes away that he will get the accolades and adulation as this criminal bastard? Sorry, there's a demerit. John McCain. You can't even criticize John McCain, this evil, evil creep. Oh, Suzanne, he was a war hero. No, he was not. He wraps up this article here. As an American, I hope the citizenry comes to understand the choice is simple and profound. Either tolerate the dominance of our numerous parasitic elites and watch, okay, he slips a little bit here, and watch the nation come apart and fail, or jettison the centralized structures and parasitic elites need to enforce their dominance. Here's the thing here. Watching the nation come apart does not mean America will cease to exist. Because what we have here is this supposition that America is tied part and parcel to this evil government that has taken over. We were not founded under one nation indivisible. 13 sovereign and independent states, which were on a par of the nations of England, France, and Spain, came together. They declared their independence. Then they said, we're going to form this Articles of Confederation. It's going to be very limited in nature, and it's going to be very difficult for one state to dominate another. Well, then we had some people with a different mindset come in, mostly lawyers, mercantilists, and financiers who said, yeah, we need a more centralized government. So let's entice these people, these bumbling agrarians. Let's see if we can entice them to Philadelphia to form a more perfect union. Surprise! We're going to close the doors. We're going to swear you to secrecy, and we are going to have a coup. What did Robert Yates and John Lansing from New York say about that one, Jeff?
Oh, they warned Governor Clinton. They said, don't ratify this. This is going to be a terrible, terrible thing. It's going to destroy the states. And that's what Patrick Henry said, George Mason, all the so-called anti-federalists. So, they were proven correct. As again, here, Suzanne, I want to, you were talking about, decentralization because society is going to collapse or whatever. Here's from January 10th, 1963. This was entered into the congressional record, so you can find it. I mean, it's in the congressional record. The 45 goals of communism. Here we go. Let's go to 15. Capture one or both political parties in the United States. 16. Use technical decisions of the courts to weaken basic American institutions by claiming their activities violate civil rights. Get control of the schools. This is 17. Get control of the schools. Use them as transmission belts for socialism and current communist propaganda. Soften the curriculum. Get control of the teachers' associations. Put the party line in textbooks. 18, gain control of all student newspapers. And here's one I was going to get to. Number 19, use student riots to foment public protests against programs or organizations which are under communist attack. So, here we go. The goals of communism as put in our congressional record, the Marxists are winning. They're doing exactly what they said they were going to do. If you read those, I mean, some of them, really, there's stuff about nuclear stuff, but it's press, the church. Let's see. Here's 25. Break down cultural standards of morality by promoting pornography and obscenity in books, magazines, motion pictures, radio, and TV. I mean, the Marxists are marching ahead. They're winning. They're destroying our culture, because they know once they destroy it, they can win. And yesterday, Greg, I was talking to Greg about a quote. I was thinking it was Brezhnev, but it turned out it was Khrushchev, about how they're going to destroy us from within. He told us how they were going to do it, and they're doing it. And honestly, we are to the point where this culture is going to crumble, and there's only one way we're going to do it. We're going to have to decentralize, and that means that declarations of independence are going to be necessary.
and just getting back to the Constitution, making these guys adhere to the Constitution. How can we enforce that when the Constitution itself has no enforcing clause? There is no punishment for throwing off the constitutional restraints. You have to take an oath to uphold the Constitution. What if you violate your oath? No one cares. In fact, you can campaign on your platform can be completely in violation of the Constitution. In fact, the platform of every single political candidate is predicated on violating the Constitution. We see that. The only one that I can come up with in history that wants to get back to the proper role of government and federalism is Dwayne Stovall. And he has to now run as an independent, do the shenanigans of the Republican Party in Texas. So we support him wholeheartedly in his endeavor. And if anybody wants to start moaning about, well, now the Democrats going to win, then it serves the Republicans right. Jeff, you mentioned the courts. The courts have been the means by which the system has been completely inverted very effectively. I'm going to refer our listeners to 3 books. The first one is, if you really want to get into the nitty-gritty, Government by Judiciary by Raoul Berger. Brilliant book. Who Killed the Constitution? Kevin Gutzman, Tom Woods, absolute geniuses, co-wrote that book. The Politically Incorrect Guide to the Constitution by Kevin Gutzman. I, as an attorney, never knew the stuff that he talks about in there. Talks about the malfeasance of the legal education industry. I wrote an article about that for the Abbeville Institute. It's called The Problem with Lawyers and the Constitution. Easy way to get that, go to SuzanneCSherman.com. You will find it under Suzanne's articles. Again, I'm not trying to promote myself here. I just want to get this information out to you. As I've said before, we have a speed bump. Whatever I say about Donald Trump, it is a speed bump. He is not the solution to this. The system is dying. He is not the solution. He will slow things down to give us more chance to get people educated, to get this information out. Great book also. I know I said 3. I lied. I came up with another one. Dave Fenner, who's been on the show, case in point, a couple times. We've talked about his book also on the Wasatch Report, Compact of the Republic, the 14th Amendment, and the Incorporation Doctrine. If you don't want to read the other 3 books, this one is about 40 pages long. It's a little booklet. You can get it on Amazon. And you can read it in an hour, and then you will go, oh my gosh, this really, he says it in a way that is so concise. It just spells it all out for you. So, this is the Marxists, as you said, Jeff, they are on the attack, and they have won. It's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time unless we try to decentralize. Tyranny, unfortunately, and this behavior and desire to dominate others has become hardwired into our character, our morality. We seem to be just fine with telling other people what to do because we want them to. As I'm telling this right now, Jeff, I'm thinking about my situation at the gym the other day. And just a little petty tyrant thought that his desires of what should be happening at the gym were more important than my ability to enjoy myself there respectfully with a girlfriend of mine, completely in conformance with the behavior in the area. But he decided he didn't want to hear our voices at all. It got ugly. I don't like tyrants. I don't care if it's political or personal. But as I was thinking about this situation, I'm actually going to write an article about this. Think about the parallel, how tyrants in your PTA, at the local homeowners association, this has become a mentality hardwired in how we deal with each other. I want this. Therefore, you may not do, have, say, you fill in the blanks, anything that does not conform with that. These people find their way into politics, or they just make life miserable. When somebody treats you like this, I know there's this whole turn the other cheek way, but Jeff, when I see these tyrants and they lash out at me, I lash out right back. This is a microcosm of society and our socio-political climate right now. These tyrants have become so empowered, they think they can tell you what to do when you're just going about your everyday life, having nothing to do with anybody. Very, very frustrating. Coming up this week, I also want to talk about my friend Jim Bovard over at, he wrote an article for USA Today. We've had him on the show many times just because of our scheduling issues and some of our tech stuff. We haven't really been scheduling a lot of guests, but I do want to make sure that I give them credit for their contributions to the show. But you can find this, jimbovard.com, and I think we'll bring this up tomorrow because this really ties in to what our government's doing right now. Think about whether or not a decentralized government with limited powers would be able to intervene in, say, Venezuela. Jim Bovard had an article we talked about. We actually interviewed him on Waco. His recent article came out just the other day or yesterday, 20 years later, after Bill Clinton bombed Serbia, killing hundreds of civilians. Great article on what happened there. And he actually wrote a journal because he was completely eschewed by the mainstream media who did not want to hear what he had to say. That sounds familiar, doesn't it, Jeff? Oh, that makes me uncomfortable. I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear that by criticizing the Democrats and being okay with everything Donald Trump does, regardless of the Constitution, I don't want to hear her complain about this. I'm going to wave my Constitution banner and ignore when my guy violates the Constitution. I will call you out on this. I don't care who you are. Well, that's why you have this little internet radio show that nobody listens to. I tell you what, people are starting to figure this out. People are starting to spread the word. Everybody that does, we thank you from the bottom of our hearts, because you know what? When you stop and you listen to us and you carve time out of your day to hear this crazy chicken lady in the mountains try and educate you on preparedness and freedom, liberty, politics, poor Jeff manning the controls trying to keep up with my insanity, you're spreading the word. You're going to help us in the long run. So thank you. This is time you won't get back. I tell people, you know, you waste money on something, you can always earn more. You can always find more. But time is something you don't get back. And when you folks take time out of your day, as I'm seeing right now on my Facebook feed, sharing our information, telling others about our show, when you take the time to personally reach out to us and thank us, that makes it all worthwhile. Because, Jeff, sometimes, as you know, we have our discussions and we just feel so, you know, why are we doing this? I could be doing something other than researching information to share with people. I don't have to get up early to do this. Jeff doesn't have to. Jeff takes time after the show is done to get all this stuff uploaded. He's up before I am, setting everything up. But you guys make it worthwhile. So I want to thank you for that one. Jeff, do you have anything to add before we wrap up the show today?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention one other local story that we'll have to talk about tomorrow. New York State is looking to pass a tax. There's people that want to pass a tax on sugar drinks, sodas, and juices because it's unhealthy. So they want to raise the price of these products to discourage people from buying them. You know, here we go. More local tyranny. So we'll get to that hopefully tomorrow.
Well, and you know, that's the whole thing. It's not good for you. So we're going to tax you and we're going to encourage you not to do it anymore. Leave me alone. Just stop it. It's a whole thing with the marijuana initiatives. You know, we're seeing states begging permission or outright nullifying the feds. But even when we have the states, quote, legalizing it, you still have to beg the state for permission. And heaven forbid you make a mistake and don't do it right, you will be charged. I have some more examples of that. So it's been a really fun show. I want to thank everybody again for listening. Thank you all who have joined our websites, sharing our information. We couldn't get the word out without you. I am Suzanne Sherman on behalf of the rest of us here at Cerberus Radio Network. Thank you, Jeff Johnson. Thanks for listening today. Have a great day. God bless you.